What's going on, everyone? Before we dive into one of the most controversial Navy operations, I need to ask you something. Have you ever wondered what really happens when cartels think they've outsmarted American law enforcement? When they believe the ocean is too big to patrol? Drop a comment because I genuinely want to know what you think happens to those runners who disappear at sea. You're watching ICE and FBI Files, the channel bringing you raw truth about federal operations mainstream media ignores. We cover ICE raids, FBI stings, DEA takedowns, and today, Navy interdiction. Operations that crossed from law enforcement into unrestricted warfare. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe because we drop new content every week exposing operations most channels won't touch. We've got over 300,000 people tired of surface-level reporting who want the full story. And to everyone who's been with us, you know we don't hold back. Today's video will challenge what you think you know about the war on drugs. It'll show you technology that sounds like science fiction but is happening right now in the Eastern Pacific. And it'll ask, when does law enforcement end and warfare begin? Let's get into it. Picture this. It's 3:47 a.m. You're 850 nautical miles west of Panama. The nearest land is a 9-hour boat ride. The water is black. True black. The moon hidden behind clouds. No ships on the horizon. No aircraft sounds. Just the dim red glow from your instrument panel. You are, by every measure, invisible. Or so you think. Inside this custom-built go-fast boat. And these vessels are insane engineering. We're talking about boats designed by actual naval architects who defected from legitimate manufacturers. These aren't crude rafts. These are million-dollar investments. Triple 300 horsepower engines capable of 45 knots sustained speed. Radar-absorbing paint using stolen military specs. Hulls shaped to minimize satellite-detectable wake. Signatures. This vessel cost the Sinaloa Cartel $890,000 to build in Ecuador. The 5-man crew was promised $75,000 each for successful delivery off Baja California. They're hauling 3,200 kilograms of cocaine, 94% pure. Street value once distributed? $140 million. Can you imagine that money? Comment below, what would you do with $75,000 for one night's work? Obviously don't smuggle drugs, but think about their perspective. That's more than their families earn in 3 generations. That's why they take this risk. But here's what they don't know. 22,000 feet above them, APA Poseidon has tracked their heat signature for 4 hours 18 minutes. Their radio chatter was intercepted 6 days ago when someone made a satellite call confirming fuel delivery. NSA algorithms flagged that call. Artificial intelligence analyzed previous routes. Weather patterns, lunar cycles to predict this departure with 94% accuracy. The P-8 crew isn't guessing their destination. They know. They've mapped every route, calculated fuel consumption, identified rendezvous points. Right now, 3 agencies watch this boat. DEA in Virginia. Coast Guard in Miami. Navy Tactical Ops aboard Destroyer Task Force 411. These smugglers think they're invisible. They're actually the most watched people on Earth. Every move recorded, analyzed, fed into targeting computers. 43 miles northeast. A destroyer calculates intercept vectors and rules of engagement. This is what cartels didn't understand. The ocean isn't neutral anymore. It's a hunting ground. The technology gap isn't significant. It's total. Cartels bring speedboats to fight satellite networks, AI, billion-dollar sensors, and crews trained to hunt submarines. These 5 men are about to learn this lesson brutally. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been so focused running forward that you forgot to look up? That's human nature. When escaping, we fixate on the destination. We forget threats come from dimensions we're not considering. That's exactly what happens at 4:52 a.m. They hear it before seeing it. A low thumping vibrating through the hull. At first they think it's engine trouble. Someone cuts throttle, listening. Nothing obvious. He guns it again. The sound persists, but it's not from below. It's from above. One spotter turns, scanning darkness behind them. Nothing but glowing wake. He looks left. Empty ocean. Right. Same. Then somebody screams, pointing straight up. The MH-60R Seahawk drops from cloud cover like a descending predator. If you've never experienced a military helicopter close range, it's overwhelming. 140 decibels. Louder than a jet at takeoff. The rotor wash creates 10-foot waves, churning ocean to white foam. Downblast rips there. Cargo tarp off, sending it spinning into darkness. The long-range acoustic device activates. This isn't a bullhorn. This projects voice commands 3 miles with perfect clarity. This is the United States Navy. Cut your engines immediately and prepare for boarding. This is your only warning. Now tell me in the comments what you'd do. 2 seconds to decide. Surrender, take 15 years with good behavior. Or run, hope the Navy doesn't want an incident, hope you can outmaneuver a helicopter. These guys run. Big mistake. The crew slams throttles to maximum. All 3 engines roar to 6,400 RPM. The boat lunges forward, while lifting as they hit 41 knots. Sea spray explodes. For 10 seconds, they think they might make it. The helicopter falls back slightly. Maybe the Navy will give up. Except here's the physics. Their engines burn 32 gallons per hour each at max throttle. 96 total per hour. They've got 580 gallons. Which they thought gave 6 hours range. But that was calculated at cruising speed. At emergency speed, they've got 3 hours 40 minutes. That's it. The Navy helicopter has 4.5 hours. Flight time. Plus a destroyer 30 miles away with unlimited fuel and spare helicopters. The math is simple and brutal. These smugglers are dead in the water. They just don't know it yet. They're burning their only asset while the Navy calmly waits. This isn't a chase. It's a countdown to surrender. The helicopter rises to 2,000 feet, matching their 41 knots. Effortlessly. Inside, the crew chief leans out with a Mk-11 precision rifle. Not aiming at crew. Aiming at engines. His job isn't to kill. It's to disable. First shot cracks through night. Starboard engine cowling explodes in aluminum fragments and engine oil. RPM drops from 6,400 to 0 in 2.3 seconds. Engine dead. The boat loses 13 knots. Immediately. 15 seconds later, second shot. Port engine. Same result. Down to 15 knots on one engine. The crew panics. Someone grabs the satellite phone for help. But the Navy started jamming frequencies when the helicopter got within 2 miles. That phone is worthless. At 5:17 a.m., the third shot. Final engine dies. The Go Fast goes silent except waves slapping hull. $3 million of engineering disabled by 3 $8 bullets. Game over. 4 men in flex cuffs 20 minutes later. 3.2 tons of cocaine headed for an incinerator. Another Sinaloa operation dismantled. Somewhere in Mexico, a cartel accountant explains to dangerous people how they lost $140 million. But this story? This is the old way. Law enforcement. Interdiction. Arrest. Prosecution. What I'm about to tell you next is what's actually happening now. And it changes everything. Now we're getting to the part media has been silent about. Pay attention because this is where everything changes. Comment if you're still with me, because this will shock you. In September 2024, something fundamental changed in Washington. Not publicly. No hearings. No press conferences. But behind closed doors, the Department of Defense convened emergency meetings with DEA, Coast Guard, NSA, and State Department. Topic: Cartel maritime operations. The conclusion was devastating and simple. Interdiction wasn't working. At all. Here's the economics cartels figured out. Profit margins on cocaine smuggling are so high that losing boats is just business cost. Send 10 boats, 7 get intercepted, you still made $300 million on 3 that got through. The Navy seized record drugs, celebrated victories. Meanwhile, more cocaine entered the U.S. than ever. For every Coast Guard interdiction, cartels sent 5 more boats next week. They had unlimited money for boats, unlimited desperate people to crew them, and time. They could lose money for years knowing political will would fade and patrols would decrease. They were winning. So the policy shifted. I need your honest opinion. I'll explain what changed, then you comment, is this justice? Necessary? Or did we cross an uncrossable line? By late 2024, certain cartel vessels stopped being classified as smuggling operations. New designation, narco-terrorist maritime assets. You might think that's just semantics. You'd be wrong. Because under international maritime law, rules of engagement for terrorist assets are completely different. Law enforcement means identify, intercept, board, seize evidence, arrest, prosecute. Counter-terrorism means identify, track, and eliminate the threat by any means necessary. See where this goes? October 3, 2024, 2:33 a.m. A semi-submersible submarine departed near Buenaventura, Colombia. Intelligence confirmed 4,100 kilograms of cocaine mixed with fentanyl precursors. 6 crew. Destination, rendezvous off Guatemala where a fishing trawler would offload. The Navy tracked that submarine 11 hours. P-8 aircraft. Satellites. Acoustic sensors. They knew its exact position always. Under old rules, Coast Guard would scramble for interdiction. Boarding team. Evidence. Arrests. That's not what happened. When authorization came that afternoon, it didn't come from Coast Guard. It came from SOUTHCOM. United States Southern Command. Military authority. And the authorization wasn't for interdiction. It was for elimination. I'll say this clearly. That submarine never reached its destination. No boarding. No arrest. No trial. No due process. The submarine was destroyed at sea using classified methods. When fishing vessels arrived 3 days later, they found debris. Life vests. Fuel slicks. No survivors. Between October 2024 and March 2025, this happened 27 times. 27 cartel vessels not intercepted or detained. Eliminated. Removed. Crews never seen. Again. I'm not celebrating or condemning. I'm reporting. This is happening. This is current US policy, never officially acknowledged. Comment right now. Is this justified given fentanyl killing 100,000 Americans yearly? Fighting fire with fire? Or have we become something we shouldn't be? Because cartels noticed. Immediately. Let me paint what happened in 6 months after this policy became operational, because effects were immediate and dramatic. Cartel maritime communications went completely dark across networks. Routes active for 15 years suddenly stopped. Smuggling crews started refusing assignments. Insurance brokers in Panama and Ecuador who'd quietly backed operations for decades refused to underwrite new voyages. Most telling, street price of cocaine in major US cities jumped 38% in 4 months. Why? The fundamental math changed overnight. Before, cartels played percentages. Send 10 boats, lose 6, still profit massively on 4 successful deliveries. Acceptable losses. After October 2024, the equation became, send 10 boats, maybe 2. Arrive, 8 completely disappear with total loss of cargo and crew. That's not acceptable losses. That's catastrophic losses bankrupting operations. Jalisco New Generation Cartel lost $180 million in assets between November 2024 and February 2025. Not seized assets possibly recovered legally. Gone. Vanished. Their maritime coordinator was reportedly executed in December because he couldn't explain why shipments disappeared without trace. Sinaloa Cartel pulled back completely from deep water routes by January. They shifted to land. Tunnels and human mules, slower and more expensive but not resulting in total loss. Their intercepted communications showed genuine fear. Commanders told crews Americans changed the rules. Surrender was no longer an option offered. And here's the genius. The Navy never made a single public announcement. No press releases. No Pentagon officials on Sunday shows explaining new rules. Just operational silence, more terrifying than any threat. Because when you publicly announce policy, enemies can plan around it. Test boundaries. Probe weaknesses. Escalate and force political responses. But when policy is unacknowledged, when boats simply disappear and nobody takes credit, that creates something more powerful than fear. Uncertainty. And uncertainty paralyzes. Every time cartels put a boat in water now, they don't know what happens. Normal Coast Guard interdiction ending in arrest? Or new operations ending in elimination? They can't tell until too late. So risk calculation becomes impossible. Would you get on that boat? Take that 75,000 knowing significant chance you won't just get arrested, you'll simply cease to exist? That's psychological warfare at its finest. Sun Tzu level strategy. Winning without fighting by making enemies defeat themselves through fear of the unknown. Maritime data shows the effect. In 2023, before the shift, Eastern Pacific averaged 380 suspected cartel runs yearly. In 2025, that dropped to 89. Coast Guard cocaine seizures actually decreased 32%. Not because enforcement weakened, but fewer boats attempt crossing. Cartels voluntarily reduce operations because risk is no longer acceptable. The Caribbean route, considered relatively safe for decades, is now called the grave in intercepted cartel communications. Direct quote from decoded Sinaloa logistics message last month. Attack submarines patrol those waters using sonar detecting boat engines from 40 miles away. So where does this leave us in 2026? And where does it leave you as an American trying to understand what your government does in your name? The Eastern Pacific corridor that was the cartel's highway? Now effectively a no-go zone. Last year 89 attempted runs. First 3 months of 2026? 11. 11 total. 9 interdicted by traditional Coast Guard. Methods. 2 simply vanished from all tracking. Cartels essentially abandoning ocean routes entirely. The Caribbean connecting South American production to North American markets? Patrolled by assets most Americans don't know exist. Attack submarines with passive sonar. High-altitude drones with radar identifying boat types from 30,000 feet. Satellite constellations tracking heat. Signatures real-time. AI predicting smuggling windows based on weather, lunar cycles, historical patterns. Not surveillance anymore. Omniscience. But really think about this question with me. Is this victory? Or did we just push the problem elsewhere? Squeeze the balloon making it bulge differently? Because here's the uncomfortable reality. Drug demand in America hasn't changed at all. 100,000 Americans still die yearly from fentanyl. Cocaine use hasn't decreased. Meth addiction keeps climbing. So if maritime routes are shut down, where are drugs coming from? They're adapting. Cartels always adapt. Now using smaller boats identical to fishing vessels. Recruiting American citizens with legal border credentials to move product in vehicles. Synthesizing fentanyl directly in the US using precursor chemicals shipped legally through commercial ports. Using drones flying over the border wall. Building more sophisticated tunnels. Corrupting more officials. The drugs still flow. Delivery method just changed. And here's what keeps me up at night. I want your honest thoughts. When the Navy destroys boats and eliminates crews, without arrest or trial, even if they're cartel operatives smuggling poison killing Americans, have we crossed a line separating us from lawless enemies we're fighting? Or is this exactly what? Victory requires an asymmetric war where the other side plays by no rules? I don't have a simple answer. I genuinely don't. Anyone who tells you they do is lying or hasn't thought hard enough. What I can tell you, right now, as you watch this, somewhere in the Pacific there's a radar operator on a destroyer tracking a contact. A helicopter crew running pre-flight. A commander reviewing rules of engagement and authorization codes. And a decision being made about whether someone lives or dies. No judge. No jury. No defense attorney. Just coordinates, probability assessments, and encrypted Southcom authorization. That's the reality of federal operations in 2026. The line between law enforcement and military action hasn't just blurred, it's completely disappeared in some cases. Whether you think that's justified or horrifying probably says more about your worldview than the policy itself. Either way, it's happening. In your name, with your tax dollars, under authority of elected officials you might have voted for. The ocean isn't neutral anymore. It stopped being neutral when cartels decided to use it as a highway for poison. And the United States decided if they treat it like a battlefield rules apply. Total surveillance. Overwhelming force. Elimination of threats. No quarter. That's where we are. What's happening while most Americans scroll social media completely unaware their country conducts what amounts to unrestricted warfare against criminal organizations in international waters? The most effective kind of warfare. The kind happening in silence. Where your enemy doesn't know if you're watching. Where every decision could be their last, and they won't know until it's over. I know this got intense. I know it raised more questions than answers. But that's the point. This isn't simple with heroes and villains. This is the messy reality of stopping a drug trade generating $500 billion yearly using violence and corruption destabilizing entire countries. If you made it to the end, you're exactly the viewer we built ICE and FBI files for. You're not here for surface-level reporting. You want the full picture, even when uncomfortable. Especially when uncomfortable. Here's what I need from you. 4 things. First, hit that like button. YouTube's algorithm actively suppresses content about law enforcement operations, drug trafficking, and military actions. Every like signals this content is valuable and helps overcome algorithmic suppression. Your engagement is literally why we can keep making these videos. Second, subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week we're covering ICE's new facial recognition system at airports catching people evading deportation orders for decades. After that, FBI undercover operations inside domestic terror cells. And a 3-part series on how DEA uses AI to predict cartel behavior and intercept shipments before they happen. Third, most important, drop a comment now. Tell me what you think. Should the Navy be destroying boats without trial? Is this the only way to win against enemies? Following no rules? Or have we become something we shouldn't be? I genuinely want to know. We've got 300,000 people here, and the comment section is where real conversations happen. People with different viewpoints trying to figure out what's right. Be part of that. Fourth, share this video. Send it to someone who needs to see it. Your friend who thinks the drug war is a failure. Your uncle who thinks it's not going far enough. Your coworker who has no idea this is happening. This story isn't being told anywhere else. Not cable news. Not newspapers. Nowhere except right here. If you think people deserve to know what their government is doing, hit that share button. The ocean isn't neutral anymore. The rules have changed. The gloves have come off. Whether you agree or not, this is the new reality. The Navy decided cartel maritime operations are no longer law enforcement problems, they're military threats. And military threats get military responses. I'm out. Stay informed. Stay questioning. Keep thinking critically. And I'll see you in the next one.